So going on Canvas real quick. To watch the video, you're of course here, and we need the Excel file that is loaded into here. So if you go ahead and click on Basic Charts Starter in Excel, and then you'll want to download that. This is the Excel file that we'll be going through in this video. So if you want to follow along and also complete the additional exercises that I will mention at the end, that is going to be the recommended way to learn from this video. Additionally, you can post any questions that you have about this section in the Excel discussion board by clicking on this link, and it will take you here where you can post and see any questions that have already been asked and hopefully answered. All right, so let's go into the video. So the setup of the Excel file, we have two sheets. The first one is the overall analysis. So we're going to be looking at this hypothetical sales data where we have the region that the customer bought, the employee that sold the food, and then this is like a farmer's market, and then the item, how many they sold, and what is the cost of that item. So we're going to be an overall analysis in this video. In the next video, we'll look more deeply at the region and the employees individually. First thing that we want to do is calculate the total price. So this is just going to demonstrate how to use formulas in Excel. So we start with an equal sign, and the total price is equal to the sales times the unit sales times the unit price, 196. And then in order to autofill this formula all the way down, what we can do is just double click in the bottom right corner, and that autofills that formula all the way down to the bottom. So now we have our variable setup that we're interested in studying. So now what we're going to do is first numerically summarize it before we get into kind of visualizing this distribution. So first we're going to calculate the average. To calculate a average, we need to use the average function. So I'm going to start with an equals and then average. And then I'm going to open my parentheses. And Excel is smart. We need to select the numbers where the Excel is going to use that in this average. So if I just highlight all of column H and then click enter, Excel is smart and knows that it's really just getting the numbers. It's excluding these blank cells and the column header. We could also calculate the median, same way, equals median, open parentheses. And then I can also just highlight the numbers that I want going all the way down. So you can do it this way as well. And then click enter, and that will calculate that formula. One thing that we want to do is work smarter though, not harder. So let's try to copy this formula to the next one. That way all we have to do is change the formula name and it keeps the range the same. So we don't have to do that selecting process every time. So I'm using a Mac. One thing that I'll note is that some of the clicks may be slightly different when we get into some later stuff on Macs versus Windows, but they should be pretty similar. So if something isn't quite right on mine or your screen, then do a quick Google, and if that doesn't work, then let me know and we can try to sort that out. So to copy this, I'm going to Control-C, Command-C, and paste this in the next one. And if I take a look at my formula now, notice how it moved one down. That's because it's currently a relative reference. So when I copy this formula down, the range that it uses is also one down. We can fix that by making this an absolute reference. So what I can do is highlight those cells. And then if I click F4, so function F4, that adds $signs in front of the columns and the row number. So that gives me now an absolute reference, which means when I copy this formula, the range is going to stay the exact same. So we see that it's fixed. So now all I have to do for mode is change it to the mode function, and we're good. Now we want to calculate the max and the min. So I already have my range set up, so I can copy this formula down twice and just change to the corresponding function. So max is max, min is going to be min. Easy enough. For the range, though, there isn't a range formula, but we can use the numbers that we already have. So the range is actually just equal to the maximum value minus the minimum value. Click enter on that. And that is our range for this data. For standard deviation, I'll show you another way that we can find formulas. So I'm in the right cell. If I go to the formulas tab, and then this one's going to be in the more functions, and then statistical, we can scroll down and look for something that looks like standard deviation. So there's a couple of them. We want the .s version, so that stands for .sample as opposed to .population. And then it wants the numbers that I'm going to use. So I can again click in the total price, and then you can also do Command Shift down arrow or Control Shift down arrow to kind of snap to the bottom of the range. And then you can click enter. And try that one more time. Get the range. Technical difficulties. That is one way you can do it. So I'll just do standard deviation .s. Notice that if you type in a bad formula, it gives you this hashtag name ? That is a formula that it doesn't recognize. So we just need to get in the correct formula, snap to the range, enter, and there we go. So this is a summary statistics table. So what this is telling us is that total price, or the total sales price for each of these different entries was 212. The middle value was 194. The most common value was 274.48. And they ranged from about 100 to 380, and a standard deviation, so a pretty large spread of $70. So that's how we interpret those summary statistics. Now we are going to visualize this distribution with a histogram and a box plot. So these are two different plots that we can use for numerical distributions. So first thing that we're going to do is highlight just the numbers. Again, Control Shift down or Command Shift down. And then we're going to go to Insert on the top. And then the histogram is going to be the blue shaded one. Histogram. There we go. And then notice here that the numbers are kind of cut off, so I can make my plot wider so that it shows all of those. I can give my chart a title as well. So I'll call this total price. And then one thing I can do with a histogram is I can mess with the bin width. So notice when I clicked inside of the blue cells, it automatically came up with this. If that didn't happen, you can right click in there and go to Format Data Series, and that brings this menu up. If I change the bin width or the number of bins, I'll change bin width. So let's say I want to make it 60. And that kind of changes the appearance. So it changes how wide those bars are in your histogram. And this can have a big impact on the final outcome of your histogram, as you see. So we'll just stick with the auto for now. So that's one way we can visualize this. Another way is with a box plot. So we can do the same process, highlight all of the numbers, insert, and then the box plot is going to be in the histogram menu as well, but it's going to be the box and whisker plot. And that is what this one looks like. So let me bring it up here. So we can give this one a title as well. And one thing that we can do, there are a few easy ways to change the appearance of any charts that we make. So if I go to chart layout here at the top left, quick layout, I can choose from these different options. We'll change it a bit. I can also remove some information. So that one isn't really giving us any information on the x-axis. So I can remove that. By clicking it and deleting it. And then it also, in one of those quick layouts, it added data labels. So it added values for the kind of quartiles and the minimum maximum of my box plot. And we can also change the color scheme like so. All right, so one more plot for us is a line plot, which in this context, because we have sales over time, is going to be a time series plot. So I'm going to highlight all of my total price numbers again. I'm going to go insert, but I actually need to highlight the x-axis as well. So I'm going to have the x-axis is going to be sales date. So I'm going to highlight all of those. Then I'm going to highlight the total price at the same time. To do that, so I'm highlighting kind of non-adjacent columns now. I need to either highlight this entire first column and then let go, and then control or command click the next one, and then I can shift down arrow. That highlights two adjacent columns, non-adjacent columns. And then I can do insert. My line plot is going to be this one here. And we can stretch it out a bit. And this gives us our line plot. So this allows us to see the trend over time. So with these graphs, we can see that we have a right skewed distribution, right? The majority of the sales are smaller values with just a few larger sales. Same in the history or in the box plot. And with this one, we see over time, there really is no trend in the sales. We can also try a few of the quick layouts, see if they add any additional information. Notice that one added data labels for every single value, right? That's not the purpose of this, and it gives it way too much clutter. So let's go ahead and undo those. Again, it might take a few to get the right one that we want. There we go. And this legend, don't need it anymore, nor this axis title. Okay, so that is it for the content for this first sheet. So exercise for you to do is calculate the summary statistics now for the unit sales, and then recreate a histogram and a time series plot, and try a few of those different quick layouts to see if those new features add any additional information, any value to the plot. Right, we're going to start thinking about how we design our plots to be most effective and not cluttered. So that's it. I'll see you in the next video.